Secret Circle.
And welcome, friends, to the Secret Circle with Luke Deckard. Tonight, I'm joined by a Sheffield-based indie band, Lina and the Lions. We have a lot of things to talk about, so without further ado, let's bring them on. Welcome, Lina and the Lions. How are you?
Hi,
Good,
Luke.
thanks. You?
Yeah, doing all right. Doing all right. Enjoying the, it's not hot weather anymore. It's getting colder. It's my kind of season. It's my kind of season. How you guys been? It's been a while since I've had you on a podcast.
Yeah, it has. The weather's changed again.
The weather has changed again.
Yeah, it's been
That's what
great.
people are here for. They're here to, to hear us talk about how the weather has changed.
Yeah, but it's awesome. There's a lot to talk about. Leaves are changing. We have pumpkin spice lattes.
We do.
We have
We do.
everywhere.
I'm
Looks
excited
lovely
for
and
pumpkins. I'm excited for pumpkins and for carving, because I don't know about you guys, but I do like to carve some pumpkins around the Halloween time. So I'm eager to do that soon in the next couple weeks. But people are here to not hear about me carving pumpkins or pumpkin spice lattes. Probably they want to hear about your music and what's going on. So let's dive in. I have a bunch of questions for you, and also there's some fan questions that came in as well, which we'll get to a little bit later.
Mhm.
But first, I want to talk about the kind of the big-ish news, I guess, is that you guys have been promoting your first album, one small step, that came out in 2018. So I actually have I've listened to it a few times. I re-listened to it today, so I have a good number of questions sort of about this whole experience, and I'm really fascinated by your evolution from where this album kind of what you were doing with this one versus Second Nature, and I'm interested to hear about number 3. So what I'm curious to know about, the first question then is how long had you guys been together as a band when One Small Step came out?
Sure. So, do you mind if I take this one? So I had the idea of the band of Lina and the Lions, and I wanted to do it so badly, but it was still even then a studio project, and it was pretty much just me and Lee again. And I was like, "Shall we do this? Shall we do this band thing?" But there was so many uncertainties there. We didn't know if we can actually do it. We were new to recording an album completely. We had no idea whether we can see it through, how we're going to do it, and we did it, but it was all kind of uncertain. What's kind of your thoughts on it?
Yeah, like you said, studio born. So it was a studio project that the album existed really before the band existed.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and it was kind of a bit of an experiment figuring out how to record an album, and the place we were at the time, we built the studio in the place, in like an office we were using, and so we were learning YouTubing how to do that, and all that.
Yeah, how to put soundproof the room, and where do we record the guitars? Do we like what do you use for outboard? What do we do? And really, it was I named the band before there was a band. It was just this is a product of this, because it was very much a studio album, an experiment, very much an experiment.
Yes. So when you say studio album, this is you mean because you had a studio before you had a band?
Correct. Very
Wow.
much so.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does that work? How did you get the studio before the band?
I suppose I knew I wanted to make music. I knew at that point in life I needed to record these songs that are written and they're born, they're here. I've got to record them. I want to do that. I want to release an album. And Lee was really busy. I was like, listen, I need your help. Like, please, I can't play guitar. I can't program drums, or I can, and it's just all over. I've got these songs. I need your help to make it sound like something someone would enjoy listening to. Because it's just me on a bass or on piano, just bashing away. Some acoustic guitar, but nothing anybody would actually want to hear. It wasn't that kind of thing. So when Lee came on board, I was like, let's make this space into a studio so we can create this music. And I think in my head I saw bands, I saw it wrong, but there wasn't one just yet. So everything you're hearing on it is just literally me and Lee just sat in the studio, and the guitar was pretty much us two. So I'd sing a guitar line, and he'd be like, "A guitarist would never do that." I was like,
I think at that point on that album, I wasn't going to be the guitarist either. For the we were just demoing in pre-production, so just kind of putting rough things together. And we had some friends and some people we knew from other bands, and that were planning on kind of just borrowing their services, just play on these tracks, and kind of like session musician type situation. And so, but we kind of needed things to take shape a little bit, and then we just got carried away. Really, I just sat there with the guitar, and Lina would have more ideas. And then we got to a point where we said, "Do you know what? Let's do this." And then we tracked it properly, and bought some nicer guitars and things, and just decided to do it ourselves. And then the same thing happened with the mixing as well. We'd got a guy. We'd got someone in America. I'll not name names because that wouldn't be fair, and also because I can't remember his name. But we got the first lot of mixes back, and I remember we weren't happy. Not in the guy was probably very good at what he did. There's probably a reason we picked him, but it wasn't what we wanted, and so we gave ourselves a week to have a go ourselves.
Wow!
And so we just got a load of plugins off Waves on literally on a week's, like you get like a week trial on each of these plugins, and we said, well, we'll download them all. We'll use the week's trial because that's all we've got anyway. And if at the end of the week we like it, then we'll hit buy on all the plugins and we'll keep them. And that was, we did that basically. We just said, well, it was kind of okay. So yeah.
So I'm curious, you didn't like the mixes that the guy who won't be named did. I'm curious, what was it about the mix that didn't land for you?
I think I'll answer that because I'm very, very funny. Like when Lee's mixing the stuff, I have to proof it like maybe 10, 20 times. I'm like, basically, he didn't feel like he was mixing it musically in a way. It's like the kick drum, for example, which is dominating the whole song. And for example, on one of the songs, Too Late, on the album, it's like it's got like a Motowny kind of feel to it, slightly like punk in some ways. Just wanted like a soft kick drum sound. And he'd mix it so loud in a song, and I'm like, okay, I'm not feel this is not musically appropriate kind of where you've set the levels for the song, or some places the strings want to take over at this point, and then he'd have the vocal like so loud on that bit, that kind of things, just kind of little musical taste. I suppose that's what mixing is. It's producing in real time, and you're using your palette and your I suppose us knowing the songs inside out, knowing what we wanted the listener to hear at a particular point in the songs, enabled you really to make that happen.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth saying that, like, the guy was, he was a perfectly capable engineer, and if he wasn't, then it's on us for picking a bad engineer. And and if there's any mixing engineers listening to this, they're probably thinking like, what are these guys talking about? Like, but it's I think what we discovered was not so much about this guy's inability to mix our tunes. It was more because there's a reason we didn't just say, well, we need to find someone else. There's a reason we went straight from that to we need to do it, is because we realized, do you know what? We've got a very particular vision in mind for what we want each part to sound like and each little bit to sound like. And we realized we had the finished product in our head, and talking to someone over emails and basically saying, this is what we want. I mean, that's hard enough to do even if you sat in the room with them, like even if you sat behind the same speakers. And don't get me wrong, that would probably be something we'll do eventually, work with great engineers, hopefully, and sit in the room with them, be able to go through that process. Because we're not going to say that they're mixing engineers who can do it better than us. But yeah, I think when it's a toss up between that thing of having it how you want it or our best attempt at how we want it, or having someone else's probably great mix, but it's not how we want it. You know, that I think we learn there and then that, oh, this is what we need to do this ourselves. We need to be DIY for that kind of approach, which is why when we did the second album, we didn't even we just didn't even think about it. We were mixing it, and we're recording the third album now, and that's again there'll be no one involved. That'll just be us for now anyway.
Yeah. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, there's no dig on sound engineers and mixers because they're terrific. But I do find that some of the albums that I enjoy the most are the ones where the band are heavily involved in the whole production of the album. It's when the band has little production that I'm kind of like, you can feel the tension. I think in certain songs and in certain albums, it's like, this just doesn't really sound like how the band should sound. For some reason, something is off, and then you realize, oh well, they didn't produce like any of the tracks on. Okay, well that's why. Probably. Fascinating. So really, the conception of this whole album came before there even was a band. The sound is very, very different. I mean, some tracks have flavor of what I would say is kind of your staple sound now, unless album 3 is a death metal album and completely different once again. But there's like pop. There's pop stuff in there. Kind of it was like folky stuff in vibey bits. There was, I think, even the first song had a like a country vibe to me. Like it reminded me of like pop country, which is just so interesting. Looking at like what Second Nature is like, and your your remix albums and your EPs and stuff like that. So I'm curious, what was your inspiration, your musical inspiration at the time of putting this album together?
I believe it's very much a first album in that we just threw everything into it without a particular direction. We just wanted to do it all. I felt like, when you're a kid and you get crayons and you don't think about palette, you don't think I'm going to go, I'm going to make this match like in a blue, red or whatever. You just get all the crayons like brown and whatever. And I really think that that's what the first album was like. It was just like a kid dipping their hands into all the paint colors and just going like that. And that's why I think there's a lot of different sounds going on. The first song, I was like listening to Dave Matthews Band a lot during that time. And I love the bands. So some of the influences were definitely taken from that. And I wrote...
I wasn't listening to Dave Matthews, which is probably why it sounds nothing like a Dave Matthews song. Dave Matthews is great, but I wasn't listening at the time, so...
I was so disappointed in him. Like,
it might be for the best, because like Dave Matthews he's all right, but like not sounding like Dave Matthews to me is a good thing.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Okay, you're with Lee on that. I'm like,
no, I like Dave Matthews. I just wasn't into him.
I get it. I get that he's got like, he's got a particular sound. You either like it or you don't. I get it. But yeah, I was listening a lot to that kind of stuff, and I've just learned like to play a bit of acoustic guitar. So I started like picking it up in songwriting. So a lot of the songs were written on acoustic guitar, like We All Fall Down, which is, I think that's the third song on the album. Yeah, it's the third song on the album. And the rest, I wrote a lot of the songs on piano. So we didn't even entertain the ideas of perhaps using those chords or those melodies and using a synth, for example. We just went, well, you wrote it on piano, record the piano, that kind of thing. So you got kind of, it feels like it's the closest thing to its birth in that way. It's written on piano, piano got recorded. It was written on acoustic guitar, it's got acoustic guitar. To a point where Give It Up, which is the second track, which is possibly the most synthy, I just had like my DJX keyboard and some kind of God knows what kind of synthy early 90s sound on there. Was it early 90s, I'm guessing, the DJX or something like that. So again, we just went with the sound. So that's why it's all mishy-mashy. But first album.
It's great. I think
there's a couple of songs on there that we kind of started to pull apart a little bit more. So there's like We're Gone, I think, is one of them. I remember working on that song. I remember working on that song on my own when Lina was out and kind of chopping it up. And same with Drifting Away, that the end track that had whole other sections that were in it, the whole of the verses.
Let's not talk about that.
That was probably the first big argument of the album.
It's on my solo
well, now we have to talk about it. I want to hear the drama of the other verses that didn't make it in.
So the in that song, what are now the verses were the bridge and the mid 8? No, they were like the choruses.
The choruses.
And the bridge, I ended up saying, no, that's the chorus.
That's the chorus,
and so
yeah,
we
that's the main
that.
thing.
And then the verses just...
we just got rid of the verses.
I just hit delete and just removed about 3 verses, maybe like a full page of lyrics just gone. And that was...
Basically, it went from a prog pop ballad, because that's what it was, like a prog pop ballad, into like more like a poppy ballad. So everyone wait for my solo career, and you get to hear the full versions.
Lina and the No Lions.
No Lions.
I think it's interesting though, from a like a songwriting perspective. I don't think people necessarily realize that when these songs are produced, that sometimes there are whole chunks of lyrics that are completely that don't end up in the song. I kind of remember the first time I even realized this was a thing, and I was maybe 13, 14 at the time. I bought a single from a band that I liked at the time, and I was, it had like the main song that they were trying to market, and they had like the lyrics in there, but there were just huge chunks of lyrics that were in this pamphlet, in the booklet rather, but like none of them were in the song. And I found that I was baffled by that they even printed all of the whole lyric, the whole set of lyrics anyway, even though none of that was in the song. Or maybe there is another version they recorded, but that version wasn't on the little 2-song single that they EP that they put out. So how often when you guys are writing songs are you leaving lyrics on the cutting room floor?
Not as often, actually. Not as often. I think the majority of the lyrics, you are actually hearing them. I think I've really grown to trust working, for example, with Lee, and so I sometimes he'll say to me, this word needs to change because of this, and that's his input in terms of lyrics. He either takes away full sections, or he'll add one lyric in a song, or 2 words, or something like that. But they'll be like super impactful. I suppose it's good to have that kind of person who sees your vision, knows what it is you want to achieve, hears the song truly and feels it, but then you're able to put your complete trust in that person and say, when you say this, I completely trust you that you're hearing something I'm not hearing. You can't, I don't know, it's like as a writer, maybe I don't know if it's the same when you write. Like sometimes you write something and you're convinced that this is it, but then someone tells you maybe, and then you're like, it's a piece of my heart, what do you mean? But you have to sometimes trust that person. If you do trust them, of course, you have to make sure that trust is there first. So,
I agree.
Not a lot of lyrics stay there. I think these days we're pretty good at keeping them.
Good. No, that's cool, and I totally agree and get that, even from because I write novels and scripts and things like that. So I mean, when I work with editors, or when I workshop new writing with my friends and stuff like that, it's really important that the people that you work with, like you two, it's really important that you trust their opinion, and the quality of their artistic integrity, because I can't tell you how many times I've been in other writing groups, or sat in classes at uni, and we're doing some teaching and stuff like that, and you could just see the tension between people who people are just giving kind of terrible advice, but they think it's great advice. and then you see the person who is just really refusing, understandably so, the advice, because they're like, this is, you're not understanding either what's being done or something like that. So no, having that kind of understanding and working together. I mean, God, that you kind of have to have that with a band, don't you? I mean, you guys wouldn't.
Absolutely.
How would you function if you couldn't if you could work together like that?
Absolutely. And it's vice versa as well. For example, like sometimes I'll just put my foot down. Like we've just one of the songs we've written, but that's because where it's coming from is so like fiery that I don't have a shaking doubt about it. And then Lee just goes, okay, because he sees that maybe there's something he can't see as well. So it's mutual, the relationship there in that way, with trust as well. Yeah, it's like there's a bit where there's like loads of strings and Lee's like, no, he's like muted them. I'm like, you need to unmute those strings, please, because they have to be there. And I explained the scene and the vibe, and then he kind of said, look, I don't understand why, but your passion towards it, and you're so adamant that, and because he knows that I'm happy to concede and go, let's go with what you're saying. So having that trust is good.
Yeah, I think like what you said a minute ago. You said that it kind of has to work for a band. I think that's the point. It's exactly that. It has to, because if you're gonna start if you start to try and rationalize it, and we probably did a lot of that on like the first album. We probably did a lot of it on the second album.
So much tears.
Yeah,
so much tears.
Eventually, I'd stop crying though, and I'd get my way. But I think we probably did a lot of rationalizing and a lot of also not just in the making the songs, but in everything, in career choices, in all kind of stuff, how we market things and color schemes and just everything else that we do as a DIY band. You do this thing where you'd start rationalizing it, or you'd start trying to say, well, what would so and so do, or this is how all the bands do it, or blah blah blah. And it's I think what we're coming around to, what we're settling into now, for better or for worse, is all you can really do is be yourselves, and being yourself is basically just doing what you want to do, and that's where trying to sit there and even if we sit and produce another 20 albums, that's still nothing compared to your average producer. They're producing albums every day of the week. So we're never going to be that. So we may as well just be us. And that's something that we realized early on the first album, is we realized, we can just follow our own taste. And in some ways, even if it's not as good, it'll at least be different. And so I think we do the same thing now if it's chopping out a part of a song, if it's changing a lyric, if it's mixing something in a certain way or whatever. It's at least it's us, and you kind of just follow that little follow the joy in you and whatever gets you excited. And if one of us is feeling particularly excited about something, whether it's a lyric or whether it's a sound or whether it's just changing the key of the whole song and playing it back to front, we do it, and we just say to the other one, this is it, trust me, this is how it needs to be. And I think that's never failed us, and that's probably the thing that says we're a good team, because we always eventually end up liking what the other one had, to the point where I bet a lot of the times we probably can't even remember sometimes who decided on what.
I heard diary. I remember everything. I keep track.
Everything is logged somewhere. Okay, so I'm interested. Say again.
When the biography needs to be released, it's all there.
I'm interested to talk about the kind of, I don't know what the right terminology is, but it feels like One Small Step for a while was sort of buried away, and there's nothing on Spotify or Apple or things like that, iTunes or whatever iTunes just called. It's just called music now.
Music.
I remember once I called Apple because there was a problem, and I was like, "Yeah, there's something wrong with iTunes," and the guy kept saying it's music. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. It's
It's true. It's true. Just yeah.
This program that has all my music is having a problem. It used to be called iTunes and it has been called iTunes for like 40 years, and you've just changed it to music. And he's like, it's called music. Like, okay,
you know, it confuses me still. I still sometimes, I know I've got like the big logo because I use Apple, and I still go into the iTunes logo like every time.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my god, just I had to grab it and put it somewhere else on my screen. So I can tap the right thing.
I know, so, it's so frustrating. But anyway, that was a digression. Anyway, you're out. This album was you know it was hard to get a hold of. And I'm sort of what I'm curious about it is why did you feel the need to sort of hide the album or bury the album? And at what point did you do that? Was this when you were recording Second Nature or writing that, or was it when it was closer to that coming out? What was that whole sort of process and the thinking behind some of that?
I think it was probably shortly before the second album came out. So probably when we were releasing singles, I think.
I remember actually making the decision. It was just before we released it. It's in my diary. That's it. Luke knows the program.
Captain's log.
Yeah, Captain's log. Very good. So yeah, I think it was just before Release This Fire. I feel like we felt that we've changed, which we have. We've moved with sound, we've moved with the message, and it felt like people didn't need to hear that at that point. We thought, anyway, I believe we were wrong now. I genuinely believe we look back and we kind of, it's silly that we silenced our journey because it's so important. It's silly to just go, this part doesn't matter, but we were naive, I suppose, in that way. And we thought people need to say us as this, and this is our message. And what we thought and felt before in the songs that we thought were important aren't actually important now. And so we just silenced it and thought maybe one day we'll revisit it. I remember the last time we chatted, I said, you know, we've got this album that we're going to re-record and remaster and I think this year we're just kind of talking about our journey, and we're talking about how, you know, the songs are not ours anymore. Once you write a song and it's finished, it's not yours. It doesn't belong to you. It's through you, and now it's for someone else. And then there's this like pack of CDs there that how many did we have made at the time? It was like,
it wasn't many.
No, hardly any copies at all. You know, It was what we can afford and what we thought. No, nobody knew who we were. It was our first album, and pack of CDs there. No one's heard these songs, and we thought this is wrong. This is like hoarding something that's not ours.
Yeah.
So, and it felt really kind of. So I was like, we need to kind of let people hear it. And you know what? My vocal's not as good, but that's okay. I grew. The message is a bit mopey and grim in some ways, but that's where I was at, and that's also okay.
You were listening to Dave Matthews Band at the time.
I've grown. It's funny because I remember the first radio station that asked to play us was the hospital radio station. I remember I was absolutely buzzing. I was like, we're going to be played on this radio station, you know. And then he said, can you send me a couple of songs? And I'm going through the titles. I'm like, we all fall down, drifting away, we're gone, passing by, maybe we were meant to be alone.
Oh my gosh.
Like, too late.
Amazing.
I was like, and that's what I mean. So, yeah, I felt obviously I was quite cynical and a bit like, you know, the world's against me kind of, you know, mode. But there was always hope in that things are going to get better. That's definitely in the message. But it was kind of, I'm in a lost place. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know if this is okay. I'm cynical. I'm a bit down quite a lot. You know, it's hard to get out of bed. You know, things like that, and it's hard to kind of this music thing I'm trying to do feels impossible, but I'm doing it anyway. So it was very much that kind of message. And then obviously when we made Second Nature, it was, I've grown, there's hope, the world's got a lot to give, I'm grateful, I'm in a happier place. I want to get out of bed because I've got so much to live for, I'm grateful to be alive. That's why kind of the synths came in, because it's euphoric. It's, you know.
Yeah.
I think there was also a bit of conscious pushback as well, because there's an irony that the songs of Second Nature were all this positive material and what have you, because we'd done the pre-production on it and demoed everything out, and Lina already had all the songs written. We finished demoing kind of like January 2020.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we were feeling really positive and things were really good. And obviously, yeah, you know what's coming. And then a few weeks later,
February 2020 happened.
Yeah. And then, so like a lot of other people, we were out of work. We were, which gave us plenty of time to track an album. But other than that, things were pretty grim. And I think, and things got very grim online, which was the only place you get to see people. And I think so that a lot of that probably contributed to the kind of pulling one small step away, and kind of pulling that away and going, because I think it was kind of, we didn't want to hear it from other people, so we definitely didn't want to hear it from us.
Yeah, we wanted a message of hope.
And I think we were sat on this album, Second Nature, that we thought, let's get this finished, because this is something that needs to be put into the world right now. I think all in all, we can look back at it, and I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say we'd try not to regret things, because even if you make a mistake, you learn, but this is probably the flip side to being independent, is that you're in charge of everything. So you can even make decisions like pulling an album, which if you sign to a major label, you're not doing that. Like, no major label's going to say, yeah, you can take that album off sale because you don't like it anymore. So that could be a good thing, because then people get to hear it. And I think since we've put it out, we've put it out in the sense of we've sold off a bunch of limited edition CDs that people have bought. And it took all of...
I have one right here.
Yeah, Luke's
yes,
got one.
exactly. Yeah, and
Thank you, Luke.
It took all of ours until we were getting messages off people saying how much they liked it and stuff like that, and we were just and we felt very foolish very quickly that
I didn't eat that day. I was so
sat.
nervous. I was absolutely terrified. I was like, everyone's gonna hate this. I don't know. This is not the same, but it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. You have to do it. So
I think also because we're in the middle of tracking the third album as well. The third album now makes a lot more sense.
Sure.
Because it's I mean, you mentioned earlier about this sound kind of palette of Second Nature, and it is one very specific thing, which is for good reason, actually, because we set a lot of rules on that album, where we only one guitar and only one bass, I think. Pretty much we might have broke that rule, and there's only one synth on the whole album as well. Like, it's just one simple synth, and so it does very much have a palette. And I think if that's all that people were holding up against our third album when we bring that out, they'd probably be in for a surprise. Whereas with the first album as well, there's this gradual progression like most bands have.
I still think it's still closer to Second Nature than it is
definitely.
It still has the elements of it, of Second Nature, because I think we were very much honest about, like, I remember when we were recording it, like, we didn't compare it to anybody. We didn't think about anything. We were just like, I like this. Let's put it in.
Yes.
I like this.
Yeah.
Let's do that. We didn't think it was hip or whatever. We didn't care. It was like, this. I like this. This is gonna happen. And I remember the lead singer from Biffy Clyro saying, about doing things the way you want to do them. I remember him saying, if you wanted to do something, to make something that everyone likes, you'd make sandwiches. And then I found out my sister doesn't like sandwiches. And even then, when you make sandwiches, some people aren't going to like sandwiches.
Yes.
So you can never make something for everyone. So just do you.
I mean,
who is it? Is it Rick Rubin who says, if you want to serve your fans, ignore them?
Yes.
So, that might have been Rick Rubin quoting someone else, although it does sound like something Rick Rubin would say.
I remember once speaking with Nicholas Meyer, the guy who directed Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, and a couple other things like that. I can't remember who he quoted, but similar to what you're saying, he quoted someone who he was basically talking about how, you know, studios nowadays they'll go online and they'll look at Twitter, or X, whatever the hell it's called now, and look at fan response and be like, oh, this is what fans want. We got to give the fans what they want. And he's like, I don't care what fans want. And he quoted something. He quoted someone else who's basically saying, yeah, like, I'm not here to write what you want. I'm here to uh, basically write something and convince you that you want what I'm writing,
I
sort of
love that.
thing. Um, and I think that's anytime I come across a book, a album, a show, or something like that, you can always tell when they're writing to numbers, where like it's paint by number stuff, and it might be a success. And I end up, but most of the time I end up not enjoying it. But then you find these things where someone isn't playing by the rules, and you're like, okay, this is the stuff that I like. They're writing against what's the trendy thing, or and I'm like, you can tell this is someone's vision, and they're writing this or this genre because this is what they love, and you can hear it. And I think that comes out in Second Nature quite a lot. You can tell that you're not. There's all these shades of influence that are in there, but you guys did your own thing, and I think it's that album it really really stands up.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
I have one more question, sort of back to like the kind of the burying of One Small Step, and that is I'm curious what you guys think of, like, because it almost feels like there was sort of like an embarrassment almost of what that album represented, and from an artistic perspective, why do you think artists do that with some of their early work? Because I never talk about my books. I have a bunch of them out there. I never talk about them. I have reasons for why I don't, which maybe I should, but I sort of get why you wanted to bury it, not because it's bad, because it's not a bad album by any means, but like from your personal, like, I get that. Why do you think we do this?
It's really interesting that you say that, because I actually got a DM from an illustrator, and
Mm,
he said he's got early illustrations and he feels inspired now to release them because we've just released our album. I got mega emotional. I was like, and that's when I realized,
wow.
hang on a minute, like what you just said, a lot of artists, writers, musicians, whatever, might do the same thing. I think because you've probably moved on and now you can
Mm,
see through the lack of technique, possibly the lack
yeah,
of ability,
yeah.
the the mistakes, the things you look back and you think how you would do them differently now. Because I get
Mm.
that. I listen to my voice and some of these, like, oh, you know, oh no, what was I thinking? Some of my vowels pronunciations, or like, why did I put distortion on that bit of vocal there? What was I thinking? And some of the
Mm.
stuff I'm like, I listen back to and think, wow, it was really raw. Like, I kind of
Mm.
admire that. But overall, I'm thinking, ugh, the quality of this is where I was. And then you're
Yes.
ashamed of it because you're aware. It's like, you're exposed, and because you can do better. I
Mm.
think it's no different to so if you've been asked to do a job now and you've made a mistake, you're trying to hide it,
Yeah.
you know, because you're aware you've made a mistake.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas back then I thought it was the best thing ever. I'm like,
Yeah.
listen to this.
I think ultimately as well, it's not. I think with any kind of art, it's once you've done it, it's not yours.
Yeah.
It's the because it's also, even while it is yours, because that's all we're talking about when we're talking about what we think of it and how much we like it.
Yeah.
No one ever listens to it in the same way as you do anyway.
That's true.
Mm.
I mean, we're in a band together, and
Yeah.
it's once in a blue moon that we're actually completely in sync about something, like, or we completely get exactly what the other person's thinking or feeling about a song. It's very rarely happens. So it's
Yeah.
definitely not going to happen through a CD or but also that's good, because you don't want that. People are supposed to project their own lives onto songs and
Mm.
things like that, and their own experiences, and it's supposed to meet them where they're at. And I think if we're constantly looking back on our art, it's like, well, it's not ours anymore in that sense. So we shouldn't really be judging it, or we should just be letting that go. It's kind of like if you wrote a Valentine's Day card to a girlfriend when you were younger, or some girl you liked, and let's say it's like, and you might be young and you might think, oh, this is great stuff, and you write it down, and then years later, if you got reminded of it, when you're all grown up, you might get reminded of it, and you might think, oh, I wish I could take that back. But then,
Yep.
but then that girl might have that in some memory box or something of that might have been the best day of her, of a year. And so you can't take that back just because the card's embarrassing to you or
so
whatever.
Beautiful. That's right.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. We do things that we don't like, but we can easily regret things. I mean, and you know what? It's quite funny that we're guilty of this, because I often spot it really quick when other people do it. Like a good example is there seems to be a bit of a trend of like celebs, almost like apologizing for the work and things like that. So you get, for example, like Clooney seems to just like doing his constant apologizing for the Batman film, and it's like,
I love that film. Well, we were talking about that, weren't
do you know
we?
what?
We were.
Yeah, it's like, that's when you're a kid. You're like, don't ruin that film for me. It's like that's amazing. I'm sure there are flaws. I'm sure there are things that could have been better. He was a grown adult when he made it, so I'm sure maybe on the day he realized things weren't right. But then again, I'm sure Arnie realized things weren't right with it. But what I heard of him was he bought the suit and took it home, because he just decided to be proud of it. And I'm sure he's still got, I get the feeling Arnie's probably still got that suit, and still.
It's bizarre you say that, because when we watched the Friends reunion, I don't know if you've seen it.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them didn't even watch the series back ever.
Yeah. No,
it was only what's his name? The guy who plays Joey. What's the actor's name?
Matt LeBlanc.
Matt LeBlanc.
Matt LeBlanc.
Yeah. He was the only person who watched it back, and he was really proud. Everyone was like, I was thinking, that's my go-to happy place. If I've had a long day, and I just want to kind of clean the place, or I just put it in the background and I giggle, or if I'm having a poorly day, blanket and Friends is on because it makes me belly laugh until today. So they've made something inspirational, but they don't seem, some of them didn't seem very proud of it. I was like, oh my goodness, it's amazing. But I suppose it goes back to what you're saying. And would you say it's ego at all?
Maybe, because I don't think Matt LeBlanc's watching. I don't think Matt LeBlanc's watching Friends thinking, look how good I look, or watch me act in this scene. I don't think. I don't think that's what he's doing when he's watching it. My guess is the reason he's able to watch himself constantly do in the same scenes over and over again is because he's probably watching it. He's probably admiring what the team achieved, and he's probably just being reminded of, wow, this is a good thing that people are enjoying. And I think, I think that's ultimately what we ended up doing with One Small Step. We realized, you know what? Yeah, let's take ego out of it, and let's take that aside, and then just think, will people enjoy this? Will people like this? And the answer seems to be yes. So
there's a sense of freedom in it as well. It's like, they know now.
There's no dark secrets. There's no secrets anymore.
No, but you know what? There's another point to that, I guess. And there was, when you record something, you're authentically yourself. Because One Small Step was that as well. We didn't try and make up a hit. We weren't trying to do anything. We just recorded what we heard and what we believed. Yeah. There's zero regret in that sense. So, for example, if I wrote an album, if my first album was like, I want to be a huge rock star, I'm going to try and copy what, this band or that
Dave Matthews
band.
did.
Matthews band, yeah. And would have totally failed. But yeah, I think I would have looked back and thought, oh, what if only I did what I wanted to do, that might have worked. Whereas now I know for a fact that I did everything I wanted to do the way I wanted to do it. And it is what it is, basically. This was me at my best with
Mm.
all my abilities,
Yeah.
and honestly as well. You know,
Yeah.
not me trying to do something. This is it. So
Yeah. I mean, every piece of art we create is a snapshot of who we are at that time.
mhm.
And when you listen to someone's, full, catalog of music, you can, one of my favorite bands, like their very first album, they were forced to be a rap metal band because that was what the thing was at the time. And then by the end of their career, they were just a solid rock band. They none of all, complete 180 change. And you, but that just happens. You evolve
Yeah.
over time, and you change your sound, and or you find a sound that's more you, and then you sort of start
Mhm.
building upon that, and that's that's kind of how it works, I think, sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm curious because I want to. Well, there's some fan questions, but I want to get a few more questions before we run out of time.
Sure.
So I want to chat a little bit about album 3. Do you have a name for the album that you're happy to divulge yet, or is that too soon?
Shall we just do it? It's up to you.
Okay.
Wait, do you know what we have titles all the way up to like album 6, 7, I think. So
Amazing.
the album is this is the first time it's going to be heard. The album's
Yes.
called Of the Third Kind.
Of the Third Kind. I love
Mhm.
that. I'm like, because I'm watching X-Files. That's giving me very X-Filesy vibes. If is X-Files thematically inspiring this album?
No, but we have
Damn.
it. No, but it's a bit yeah. You have to be patient. So when you'll see what's going to happen. We've got a fan who I'm literally constantly looking for like cameras in here. He like every time we release something, he DMs me and tells me what he thinks is happening. I'm like literally just like checking the teddy bears. I'm like, this is creepy as hell. So he gets so much of what's happening with the third album. And I'm like
Right.
looking through my stories. I'm like, nah, there's no leaks. There's no leaks. How does he know? So I love it.
Oh,
It's
that's
really in
amazing.
tune with what we do. But yeah, so you're the
Cool.
first person to hear the title of the album.
I love that name. That's a good one, and I like the theme. And I knew this was a theme from our conversation in the past, where it was there's 1, 2, and 3. There's a numerical theme going on. I love that. Thematically, what would you say the theme of the new album is shaping up to be, or does it have a specific theme?
Producer?
What do you think lyrically at the moment? We should say we're the album's probably going to end up being maybe 10, 11 tracks.
Yeah.
There's the way we work is Lina's constantly got you've constantly got like 100 songs in flow or in progress or whatever, and then what we'll do is we'll kind of just pick what feels right. Not necessarily what's new. In fact, it's quite often not what's new, because you can sometimes get excited if you wrote it last week. That's kind of where you'll kind of demo something and then just leave it for a little while. I might say it's rubbish, and then
It turns out to be the best song.
that's a bit of a common theme in this. Some of my favourite songs, she writes down in a diary that I said that was rubbish when
I've actually got exact words. Like there's one where it said, "There's nothing in this. There's nothing
Amazing.
about this. Nothing in this." And I wrote, "Lisa has nothing in this."
and then it ends up being my pick for the
yeah. Then he
single.
says, "This song's amazing." I'm like, back in, April 2021, you said there's nothing in this.
So we'll end up picking a bunch of songs, and at the moment we've got a board over on the wall that's got kind of the album progress on it, and there's like it's maybe 16 that are like, they'll be the ones that we'll kind of work at. And then we kind of we did that on the last album, where we just kind of went at it with maybe about 16, 17 songs, and if some are just proving a little tough to finish, some will get. On the last album we had some that got right up to like, they'll be like 95% finished, and they didn't go on the album because the last 5% was just too much of a push, and then we'd start another one and it'd be done in the day. And so we'll kind of, even though there's probably like 5 that are kind of at a point where we're ready just to track them and stuff. So there, and then there'll be 5 or 6 more that we've kind of started fleshing out and things.
I guess the theme, when you're saying the theme of the album, the theme is like growth pains, I suppose. Going back to kind of, when you're a teenager and you're going through the transition and you're scared, you're confused. And I think it kind of became a natural progression of like one small step. I was very much in a place of doubt and fear and, cynical, down, didn't have a lot of faith, that kind of thing. And then second nature is we're at the journey, we've set off, we're excited, we're full of hope, we're armed with light and everything we need. But there's obstacles now. There's the pain, there's the pain of growth happening. And I think that's what the album's about. You find yourself, because when you grow, you're uncomfortable. You're kind of in the middle of, this is who I used to be and this is who I am now. And I'm like somewhere here, and it's very, very painful. A lot of people, like, I can't hang out with anymore because where they're at, I'm not there anymore. So it's exhausting being around them. I know it sounds horrible, but I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And or sometimes you hear conversations that you can't be a part of anymore because I don't want to gossip anymore. I've kind of gone past that kind of thing. Or, so that's what it's all about. And what it's like to kind of bear that burden of I want to move on in life. And then obviously there's some teenagers around that I've watched go through their own, growing pains. I'm like, I remember what that's like. We all remember what that's like. Some songs are about that.
There's actually a lot of that on. That is probably a bit of a, not a theme, but kind of there is a bit of a reoccurring thing that keeps popping up of teenage years. Actually,
teenage years,
either written probably about other people that we know, but but not. I suppose the songs never end up being strictly about anyone, do they? They end up not even with yourself. They end up being morphed into something else.
Vague.
Good, because people there should be like ink blocks. People should be able to just see what they want to see in the songs. But the teenage thing there's probably a lot of that in there, which is easy to draw on as well.
Yeah.
I think when you're an artist, that's an easy time to kind of reflect back on and write what would teenage Lina and Lions do. It's easy to do that, so which is good. It's good for when you're in the studio and you're trying to make decisions. You can kind of just go, what would I have done if I was 15, and then you go I'd press that one.
Actually, I'm going to give you a scoop here. So
okay,
I'm just going to talk about it. So I've got this DJX keyboard, right? Lee, you've got it. Can you show it to Luke? Right, Lee's been like, why is this piece of trash in here? You need to get it out. And he said that forever. This
look at that. Glorious.
Right? And I love it. It's got like a scratch pad, like a vinyl scratch, kind of thing. You should hear the effects in it. They're amazing. I love this thing. And Lee's like, honestly, there was one time I had it in the car and I was going to take it to Tip. I'm
my gosh.
Put that thing down. Like this is my baby. And now we've got as well as the drums, so he's actually using the built-in sounds of like rhythm and beats that are programmed in. We're having them as well as the drums in that, and it's giving it like such a sound. Like I can't think of anything that sounds like that. Super excited about it. Yeah.
So how long have you owned that then? Is that something from
for like I think like maybe
I don't think you owned it from
10,
new.
15 years. No, I didn't own it new. No, I bought it from Cash Converters for like 45 quid.
Probably.
Well, I mean, 10 years ago, we were all still sort of kids.
So it's like
I think that thing's from.
I don't know when it's from.
The early noughties at the latest, but it might even be.
Really? I thought it was older than that. It looks ancient.
It might be early 90s because I think there's a lot of analog stuff going on in it, and
it sounds so cool. Honestly, like I was so happy. Cool. But anyway, he did the whole thing of it. It's like it's absolute trash. And then I was like, do you know if we have that? That DJX keyboard? Like, yeah, shall we use it? I was like, I said that like years ago.
I think it's on.
It's in my diary. We will use it.
I think it's on every track so far that we've done.
It's got such a vibe, and I think that kind of combined with the theme and the sounds, I'm so excited.
Wonderful. Let's hit a couple of fan questions before we close it out.
Sure.
So one individual asks, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your younger selves?
Such a good question. Be yourself no matter what. Don't try and morph into something else. If you feel something in your gut and it feels good, it's the right answer. That's something I wish somebody told me. Don't try and please others. Don't try and be something you're not. But then if you feel like there's something you want to change it as well. Don't be afraid to do that either.
Yes.
So that's the kind
Don't
of advice.
Try and be Dave Matthews Band.
Don't try and be Dave Matthews Band. No.
I like that. Yeah. What else we got? How do you feel on stage?
That's a really good question. I feel differently every time. Sometimes it's absolutely terrifying, such as the first time we played a Comic-Con and Mario and Luigi are there, and you're wondering what's going on. Mamma mia, you know. And the first time we played HMV, the lights were on. That was nerve-wracking. But the best feeling on stage is when you feel like there's a light coming from the heavens all the way down to the core of the earth, and you just lifted. You feel one with the band, you feel one with the audience, and it's absolute euphoria. So the majority of the time, that's the feeling. It's just absolute euphoria and happiness and excitement.
Awesome.
That's what you aim for every time.
Love that. A favorite book that you've read recently?
I read quite a bit, but there's one recently that Lee's given me to read, and it's called The Blue Ocean Strategy.
Okay.
And it's a business book, actually. I've only read like the first 17 pages up to now, but it's a book about creating rather than competing. So, being an independent band, sometimes we look at business books to get our head in the game. Yeah. And this book's about basically brands that have, rather than compete with everybody else, they've kind of made their own path. And it's a great book, up to what I've read so far. It's pretty good. So.
Well, I've read the rest, and the rest's great as well.
Wonderful. And another question is, who is your biggest musical inspiration?
That's really hard. I think that's Jake who's asked that, probably.
I thought you were going to say Jake is your biggest inspiration.
I remember him saying that on Twitter. Biggest inspiration musically has been Switchfoot, really, for me anyway. I know there's been many, such as Queen, The Police, Thin Lizzy, Cyndi Lauper, Madonna, no doubt. I can go on forever. The band that's really resonated in my heart for such a long time in every way has been Switchfoot.
Yeah.
What about you, Lee?
Dave Matthews Band.
Yeah, Dave Matthews.
He's like, no. Oh, poor Dave Matthews Band. They're touring the UK as well. We're like great promotion, right?
Yeah,
totally.
I think they'll do fine. I think they'll
go right.
I think they'll sell out. I think they'll be okay. So, yeah, I think like you said, lots of different influences. I mean, Green Day recently, they've done like some anniversary. Is it the 30th anniversary of Dookie?
Yeah.
Which a weird one with that. You were talking earlier about different lyrics. There's they've released a version of Basket Case, and every word is different.
Oh wow!
Every single word. The melody is all the same, and the tracks. The track's quite different. The drums are completely different and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just completely different lyrics. That's really, really weird. And that was apparently that was the first version. But I know that band was kind of like my musical awakening, if you like. Before that, I'd listened to I'd listened to my mum and dad's music, which I still like. I still like a lot of that stuff. Still love Bryan Adams and Thin Lizzy and Queen and stuff like that. But then that was mine. Green Day was mine, and
awesome band.
So still love Green Day. Yeah.
Yes. Cool. This was a lot of fun, guys. I'm really glad that we got to hang out again and chat music and recap what happened with One Small Step and that it's out there in the world and hear about what's going on with the new album and all that kind of stuff. Is One Small Step ever going to find its way onto streaming or digital download from your website? Or
yes, actually you can already kind of get a digital download on the site, but we are gonna put it up for streaming. When did we say? I think it was it next month? I think he said something like next month.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think we said we're gonna do the CDs like a month later. We're gonna do the streaming, so it'll be on streaming very, very soon.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to more people hearing it that way as well. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can go to our website, which is www.linaandthelions.com, and you can navigate to everywhere from there. Really, that's kind of the hub.
We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify,
X.
all that stuff. X, yeah. For Twitter and
Threads.
Yeah, wherever
it's
that
like,
is.
how do you catch up?
And anyone who's still got iTunes installed, we're probably on there somewhere as well.
Amazing. Fantastic. Well, this was a lot of fun. Everyone go listen to One Small Step, Second Nature, anything else that's on that's out there and on their website and streaming, because really great music. Looking forward to the new album. Do we have a date for the new album?
No.
Not yet.
That's fine. It's too okay. It will come out at some point. Watch this space.
I think we're definitely looking this year.
Really?
Cool.
No, maybe.
Wait,
not.
this year. Okay, right. 2024.
Yeah.
There'll be something. There'll be something this year.
There's definitely something.
There'll be something new this
year.
even if it's just
Fantastic.
a single from the album.
Fantastic. We'll look out for that. This was a lot of fun. I look forward to chatting with you guys again.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Cool. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
The Secret Circle.
Stay tuned to a special performance by Lina and the Lions as they perform their song "We All Fall Down."
When it all seems so right, we all crash down. We fall to the ground. The things we thought we'd never see are clear. The things we thought we'd never feel in here. Down, 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 down. We drop. We don't know how, and we don't know when. Down, 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 down. We drop. We all fall down. We take a breath. Breathe it out, we get up, rest, and hope for the best. Holding on to a shooting star against our will. We hold on still. Oh, down, 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 down. We drop. We don't know how, and we don't know when. Down, 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 down. We drop. We all and it all sounds good enough. We all